Hello everyone, Professor Toybox here along with Princess Jasmine, and I'm working on the build for my Agrabah toy box. My goal today is to finish the palace grounds, which contains the gardens and the entrance to the dungeon. Since last time, you can see that I've extended the wall all the way around the compound here, and I want to point out one change that I made. The onion dome that's on the tower, I've changed the texture of that. And I just wanted you to see it. I was previously using the swirly texture, and actually I think I like the red metal texture a little bit better. It's a little shiny on certain sides, but I think it more closely matches the domes on top of the palace. So I like that, and that doesn't look quite as cheesy as the swirly texture I was using before. So, now for the gardens. Here are some screenshots of the palace gardens from the Aladdin movie. There's a porch on the back side of the palace that leads to the gardens. The porch is surrounded by clumps of leafy palm bushes, and there's a big flat tree above the door. Unfortunately, the toy box doesn't have anything like that tree, so that's a detail I don't think I can replicate. The porch leads to a wide sandy area that stretches through the middle of the gardens. It's lined with grass and some tall, thin trees, and behind that is a veritable wall of large trees. In the middle of the sandy area is a huge fountain, and at the far end of the sandy area is a small birdcage structure where Jasmine keeps her pigeons. And unfortunately, we don't have anything like that birdcage either, so I'm afraid I'll have to leave that little detail out. So as we get started here, we're going to begin with the porch, I think. And so we'll come into the blocks drawer, and I'm going to use this long, thin block here. And I'm going to place one, and we'll change the texture, because this isn't going to work at all. And we'll scroll over a little bit to the right to the Agrabah Palace stucco, and I'll set that to be my theme. And I'm going to drop down, 3 of those there, and 3 of these here. And this will be the porch for the patio. And while we're right here with this texture, let's go ahead and put the doorway to the dungeons. And we'll add that in over here. And so I'm going to put this, let's see, if we put this over this way, that doesn't look too bad. We'll see if we can cover up that seam a little bit. And that's the structure I want to put in, and I think that's enough for now. And then on the floor for the porch, I don't like the grid that's on there. Those ruts are pretty deep, so we're going to add a large floor. Like that, and I think that looks better. So that looks pretty good. Now the stairs, we have something under Building Sets Group 4, these Fantasyland stairs, and that looks a lot like what we see in the pictures for the palace garden. So I'm going to add that, and then we need some kind of a doorway up there, and I'm going to use these Agrabah Palace columns. We'll put this right up against the palace wall, just like that. Now, there are some large leafy palms around the front of that. And for that, we're going to use this Fantasy Terrain Corner number 1. And I'm going to put these down in here, and I'll style these in a moment. Well, we'll put these around the perimeter of the porch, just like that. And the texture that I've found that looks best for that is from the Sahara Sand Square power disc from the Zootopia set. So I'm going to put that on my Disney Infinity base. I do not want to style my entire world to be that. And so now we'll come over to one of these and press the X. And if we come over to the left, just one, I'm going to go ahead and theme all. Are you sure? Yes. And there we go. So that looks pretty close to what you see in the movie. Got those nice big leafy palms there. And I like that. That looks pretty good. Okay, next up, under the decorations drawer, the best fountain that I found that I like would be the Monsters University Founders Fountain. That's about the largest we've got. There's a couple of other fountains that could work, but they're smaller, and yeah, I like that one. It also makes a nice water sound as you walk past it, so that's good. And then we're going to come back down to the plants drawer, and along the sides of the sandy strip we had those tall thin trees. So if we scroll over to the right a little ways, past these topiaries, we have the Metroville trees, and these look pretty close to what we see in the movie. And I'm going to set these back off about like that. And let me just grab a terrain block here. Yeah, that's about right. So I'm going to put one on that side. We're going to put one on this side. And we'll put them about that far apart. About 2 blocks apart. And we'll rotate them so it's not quite so repetitive. Like that. There. So that looks pretty good. Now, we need kind of a wall of foliage behind that if we're going to mimic what we see in the picture. And just sticking any tree in there, this is pretty wide open. And about the best tree that I've found for that is the Sleeping Beauty trees. And so I'm going to come back over here to the left. And the piece that we need to style is this Fantasy Terrain Corner 2. And I want to go ahead and just drop down a few of these little blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just for spacing purposes. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. And it took a little while to play around with this spacing, because once I style these pieces, the trees are going to extend pretty far over, at least a good 2 blocks over this way. And so we have to set them back what looks like it's going to be a long ways, but it's really not once they're styled. And we're going to set the trees up like this. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. And I found it's a little easier to place them when they're like this, because once we style them, they'll be bigger, and the bounding box around them will be bigger, and it won't let us place these quite as close together. So that'll work pretty well. And then for some additional trees scattered around the property, we can put in these Fantasy Terrain 3 trees and rotate them so they're not all oriented the same way, and offset them a little bit. And just kind of place them around. Try to leave some space between them, because these are going to be much larger after we style them. And don't want to go too crazy with the trees, but we need multiple ones here in order to do this and have it look decent. Now, let's see. Let's place them in here first. And it doesn't really matter where you place these. It's not going to make a whole lot of difference. You just want to kind of mix them up. You want to make sure you don't place them so that they look like they're in rows. Because these trees, even though it's a garden, it's kind of an organic area, so it'd be nice if they were kind of staggered around a little bit. There we are. And I forgot to rotate that one, so we'll do that. Okay, so now we can come over to these, and we're going to go left to these Briar Ridge terrain corners. I'm going to theme all. Are you sure? Yes. Whoop. That wasn't quite what I wanted. I was hoping it would only do those trees, but that's all right. We can come back over to these individually and fix those. So we'll apply that. Put these textures back. There. So that's looking pretty good. Kind of looks like a nice garden area. I like that. Okay, and I think that's pretty much it for this area. Again, I don't really have anything I could put here on this corner for the bird cage. One thing you could do, the closest thing I found, is over here, this little Fantasyland half tower, which has kind of that little grid window. And you could put two of these back to back, but the roof of that doesn't really match the rest of the palace. And so, to me, that looks a little out of place. But if you don't mind that, you can put that in there. I think for my toy box, I'm going to leave that out and save the memory for some other things. One thing I do want to do, though, is take out the spacers, because we don't have any need for those now. And they look a little funny. And there we are. That looks pretty good. Looks like a wall of trees on either side. Not bad. So with that, the palace is done. Next time we'll start working on the city that lies outside the palace gate. Until then, I want to thank you for watching, and I want to thank all of my subscribers for your positive comments and feedback on my Aladdin series so far. I put a lot of work into this project, and it's encouraging to hear how much it's appreciated and how excited you are about it, so thank you. If you're not a subscriber yet and you love Disney Infinity, just click the follow button on my blog or my photo in the lower right corner of this video. Then you won't miss any videos of my toy box projects. If you want to build this toy box on your own console or PC, you'll find resources on my blog that will help you out. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.